Bhengu-Motsiri, ANC Spokesperson. Mahlengi, appreciate your time this afternoon. Now, what is the ANC's perspective on this Moonshot Pact?
One of the things that we've said earlier on, when speaking to members of the media, was to make an indication of the fact that, of course, in a democratic dispensation such as ours, any interest group or interest groups that come together for a singular purpose, unified around a set of ideals, has every right. And so we note and have got nothing to take away from the initiative that has been started by some of the opposition parties. We note that we are obviously less concerned about the Moonshot Pact, but more concerned about winning back the hearts and minds of South Africans and also mobilizing progressive across the world as well as here in our country for an outright win by the African National Congress come the elections campaign in 2024.
Now, this pact is being likened to the CODESA pact. What does it mean for you? What does this signify for you as the ANC?
And this is now in reference to the Moonshot Pact and the venue of choice. Is this the question where it's going, Hugo?
Correct.
Yes. No, we don't see it as a second CODESA. A second CODESA was very much inclusive. And it was a very painstaking process for that matter by an ANC-led liberation forces to take the apartheid system to a negotiation environment. So we do not see it as, in any case, emulating that kind of experience. It's a group of opposition parties that want to unseat the ANC, and they've got every right to plan that way, but it certainly cannot be CODESA. CODESA negotiated the principles upon which it was going to meet. It had certain exclusions, but the spirit was to bring in every South African that had something to contribute. That certainly don't see it that way.
Mahlengi, you refer to them as just a group of political parties. Does this suggest that you are not worried, that you are not concerned about certainly the impact and the momentum that they could gather before the next elections?
Well, it is a group of political parties. It's certainly not all the parties that exist under our democracy. So it is said in that spirit. But about concern, certainly the ANC, and like any other party that came into office on the basis of an electoral mandate given by the people of South Africa, has got to be concerned by anyone that wants to unseat it. We would be naive to simply dismiss it. But the point we want to make is the fact that the ANC itself is doing its own electoral work, mobilization work, is speaking to its own friends as well, and would also rely on the basis of our mobilization, which is something that we are the only party that has got the capability of the ANC to be on the ground, to speak to South Africans. And I think our focus is really winning back the hearts and minds of many of our South Africans as much as we can, explaining our story, both our successes and our failures, and accounting for those failures. That is where the focus of the ANC's campaign is, and certainly not on the opposition. And this is the point I'm making.
Now, you talk about being the only party that has capacity to be on the ground and speak to the electorate about their challenges. But you will agree that some of these challenges you don't have to speak to them about. It is clearly evident when we talk about service delivery, the unavailability of electricity. How are you dealing with those challenges ahead of the next election, particularly when you look at the fact that a number of political parties have now come together?
Yes, just ahead of the unveiling of our 2019 manifesto review process, Hugo, that takes place on the 2nd of September. This is where we're going to be detailing the different interventions that we have rolled out since 2019. We're going to speak about energy security. We'll speak about electricity and load shedding, for example. We will account for the changes that are being made or have been made and are starting to be felt in that environment, and I use that as an example. We'll talk about the social safety net in South Africa and the strides we've made in that regard. So there will be an extensive opportunity for us to come back to account to the people of South Africa on the basis of a research-driven approach that we're taking to that review of our 2019 elections manifesto. I do stress that I think our focus is really less about the Moonshot Pact than it is about speaking to South Africans. And I think it is important to continue to speak to South Africans and do. But it's important, it's been in our tradition to listen and even craft our manifesto based on having listened to the sentiments of our people. We'll be able to account about what the impact has been of extending access to energy to the poorest of the poor, the cumulative impact of that on the infrastructure in the grid. And so we would explain, not explain them away, but we will be able to explain those things to the people of South Africa and then to talk about measures that are in place and the future outlook.
Do you think the people of South Africa will be satisfied with an explanation, or do they expect results?
The people of South Africa by right have got to expect results. But at the same time, I think the ANC has been known to connect, to do this thing that you are questioning, listening, and to internalize what the ANC is saying. And so I think it's a combination of all of that. But of course, results are the most important.
Now, how do you react to suggestions by Action SA and UIM that there is the possibility of a super coalition between the DA and the ANC? Is that something on the cards?
It's not on the cards. I read a piece that was attributed to the leader of the opposition, suggesting that given the momentum around the Moonshot Pact, that the coalition talks with the ANC are going to be being reconsidered. And I must say we know nothing about those coalition talks that he's referring to.
The ANC yesterday visited King Misuzulu. Can you give us some insights into how that conversation went?
Great meeting, great reception by Isilo Samabandla. The key theme that the ANC is using in these pilgrimages to institutions of traditional leadership, to faith-based communities, is about how we work together to advance social cohesion and tackle some of the stubborn challenges of poverty, including rural underdevelopment. And so it was quite a very useful meeting. We performed what is known as Ubota Isilo, which is essentially to go and pay respects and to gift the Silo as a way of recognizing the centrality of his role among Amazulu nation.
Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri, ANC spokesperson, appreciate your time this afternoon.